We're back, and for what will probably be the last time this year, maybe, we're here to tell you about the Chester County Studio Tour on May 15th and 16th, which we will be participating in for the second year in a row. Last time, we got to sit down with the head of Studio 25, Adrian Martinez, and discuss the many facets of life as an artist. Today, we are out and about once again, this time to have a conversation with the other member of Studio 25, Gwenn Knapp. Gwenn is an extraordinary talent in realist painting and a genuinely delightful human being. Her strong academic background leads to a process steeped in problem solving that yields exquisite works of art. Though painting is often a highly cerebral activity, it wouldn't be the same without that emotional component, and Gwenn is the kind of artist that simply radiates her love of painting, to the benefit of any artist who happens to be standing by. We hope you'll join us in basking in the joy of painting with the wonderful Gwenn Knapp. How long have you been involved with the Chester County Studio Tour, and what has the experience been like?
This will be my 4th year. My first year, it poured. Absolutely poured. I was in a tent on somebody's property with several other artists in tents, and everything was sopping wet, like tents on the grass. And nevertheless, I sold enough pieces that, it's like, this was fine, worked. And what was delightful, and what's been consistently delightful, is the conversations with people as they're coming through. And that was a surprise to me, how much fun that was. The second time was nice, but the sales were lower, so maybe everyone was doing their gardening. And then last year and this year with Adrian, of course, was just a real treat. And great company.
Right. How has living in Chester County influenced your artwork or your life?
Living in Chester County has been wonderful, actually. I mean, it's just a wonderful place to live in so many ways, and it has made all kinds of things possible. I was in New York City with 3 little children, and I needed to get out because it was, a shopping cart and stroller and, stairs and, subways and backpack and shoulder. It was like a mule to manage, 3 children in New York City, and I thought I just need to get out now. That's very hard to get out of New York City, right? Because you got to pay your rent, you got to work, So I had a friend living in Westchester who helped me line it all up. She did some of the legwork for me, and it was like jumping through a hole in time and space, and I landed in Westchester. And it's been great. Like, the opportunities and the environment are all so manageable. There's resources, and there's beauty, and there's community, and there's access to urban culture. And so I find it dynamic. I find it beautiful. I find it, really, it's a manageable space for living, just very humane. And then you can plug into a little thing and find yourself in a community. I was a math major. That was everybody recognized I was really good at math. So this was in the, late 50s, early 60s. But, it was recognized, even though I was a woman at the time. And I was very aware of those kind of sexual stereotypes. It was pretty clear, there are roles, and it bothered me. People should just be able to do whatever they want and it not be a stigma one way or the other, because everything's needed. In a history class, I was given a free project, do whatever you want. I did a picture of Titian painting a circle for the king. Now, I've heard that story with other artists plugged in, but that's the artist. That's the way I heard the story, that it was Titian, that he did a circle, a perfect circle, as his audition for a commission. And I made that painting for a history project. And then for a English project, do whatever you want. I drew a picture of Thor Heyerdahl because we had read Kon-Tiki. So nobody noticed, leave her on her own, she's making pictures. And then when I started college as a math major, Bachelor of Science in Math at a small, well-known small university, my father died my freshman year. By the end of my freshman year, I shouldn't really have gone back, but I did, and I really didn't remember anything I'd learned in math, and math builds on itself. So I was like, I can't go on. I'll have to change my major. And I took an art elective, and the drawing teacher looked at my work. He said, "You should be an art major." And I was like, okay. And I changed my major to art. It was the only art major. And it was the 60s. And the painting teacher, who had come from a really well-known school for art, and I'm sure had a great background, he'd come in and say, "Do you know what you're doing?" I would say, "No." He'd say, "Good." And walk out. When I graduated, I figured I don't know enough. So I applied to this advanced year program at School of Visual Arts in New York, which is what took me to New York. And it was being taught by artists, professional artists that were represented in the galleries at the time. And I thought, this is great. Well, I mean, it was the 60s. It was ovals and stripes, and I'm not that artist. And the teachers, we had one who was even on the cover of Life magazine at the time, who took the 3 women in the class aside, and he drew on the side of my cubby, "This is the physical body, this is the spiritual body, this is the etheric body, this is," and he went on, so with distorted sort of Buddhist perhaps teachings. and his conclusion was, and that's why women can't be artists.
Oh my God.
So by the end of that year, I was like, I think I'm just not an artist. I went to New York State Employment and said I could type, and ended up learning graphic design. So that path worked for employment purposes. But I couldn't let it go. Just what you're saying, like I couldn't let it go. I would just be like, I'm just not an artist. And one day I was like, I don't know if I guess I'm not an artist, but I love doing it.
Yeah.
So then, ever since then, every place I could plug in a little bit of artwork, I did. You know, if I found a random class or some little, the kids were sleeping and I, had a moment that I wasn't using that time to fall asleep myself, but, to make a little picture, a little drawing. I did odd things. You just always had to do it. So I don't know what that is. But I do think if you're shut out of the field, like so many women were for so many years, well, they decorated the clothing, they decorated their pottery, they decorated their whatever it was they were allowed to do, their embroidery, the weavings, the tapestries, the pottery, whatever they could do, it's going to come out. Like even now, women who aren't specifically trained in artwork, I mean, they decorate their cakes, they decorate their flowers. I mean, it's a human thing to do. And music, too, is a human, the dancing and the drumming and the, it happens. It's like a human thing that happens. And I don't know what it is, but that drive to create is very strong. And it finds a way to express itself. I think creativity happens in sneaky ways in all kinds of fields that people are doing it and they don't realize they're doing it.
This question is just for me, but are you the kind of person where if somebody else tells you that you can't do that thing, that suddenly becomes the only thing that you need to do?
I don't know. That's a good question.
I know for me personally, if somebody, if I had been in your situation and somebody told me point blank, you can't be an artist, I'd be like, well, that's what I'm doing now.
I don't know. I think it really did intimidate me. I didn't agree. That was like, this is a bizarre thing to say, but it's a big hurdle to overcome. Yeah. As a matter of fact, my daughter went to art school, and I did a comparison of her Jansen with my Jansen because I had a theory. In my Jansen, there were not women artists. I learned about Mary Cassatt here after I moved to Westchester. I didn't know about her. And really, it's amazing how that makes a difference. There were women making artwork, paintings. There were. They weren't at that time in the art history books. So it was a big hurdle to overcome somehow, all of that. Not having examples, not having any support. And stylistically, what I like to do was really not appreciated at all at that time. And so that's the part that's just kind of a defiant thing. It's like, but that's what I like to do. It's not what's considered in the arc of art history relevant anymore.
Describe an aspect about working as an artist that you think most people wouldn't know or expect.
I think we see things differently. I know my son who makes music hears things differently. Like he hears things that I don't hear, or he's got things that run in his head that, and for me it's all visual. I see things. I'm pulling up next to the median strip and I notice the way the light's hitting the stalks of grass. I know I've had a friend who says that about looking at my work, like, oh, I didn't notice that. It can be a good exercise for people to take a drawing class or something, just because you have to look at things in order to draw them. You're looking at angles and relationships and lighting, and you're seeing all that. So it affects how you see things. And the more you do it, the more it expands that. When people say, I can't draw, well, it starts with just looking really carefully at something. And then there are tricks and tips to help you articulate those, reproducing those angles and things. And they're really fun to learn. But it all just kind of feeds on itself.
Our first time actually doing the tour, we met this one artist. He does paintings of cars. Extremely detailed, like photorealistic. And he told me something that almost broke my brain when I heard it. He was talking to somebody who was just looking at his paintings, and the guy looked at him and asked him, "Where did you get the chrome paint?"
Oh.
Because he was looking at a picture of a chrome wheel. And a highly reflective. Of course, you know, when you paint something like that, you have to paint all the individual reflections to make it look reflective. And this guy just saw chrome, and he said, "Where'd you get the chrome paint?" And when he said that, like my brain broke down a little bit because, you know, being an artist, like I know what it took to paint that, but all he saw was chrome, and he couldn't see the individual pieces. He just thought he put chrome paint on there, and he was done. So,
fantastic.
I mean, I think that's a really good example of
Chrome is a great example of
how an artist would see it, and how just the casual observer, they just see the finished product. They don't see all the individual components that make up that image.
My brother worked with stained glass, and one time I just tried it with him, and it forever changed the way I see the sky. It's like, oh, that's that glass. That's that kind of glass. Like
Yeah.
you start seeing the sky in different types of stained glass.
Anytime I start really focusing on a certain medium, then I start interpreting things in terms of that medium. If I'm doing something like pixel art or cross stitch, I'll break things down into a grid of little pixels, and I'll be analyzing, how would I cross stitch that?
Do you dream that?
Sometimes I do. Sometimes I just see it as I'm going to. It's like the Tetris effect, like they call it, because if you spend a lot of time playing Tetris, then you'll start thinking of everything as like Tetris. But yeah, sometimes I've had dreams about it. Sometimes it'll just be like running in the background process of my brain during the day. It's a really good exercise, I think, to try different media, even if you feel like you might not be good at them or might not know how to do them. It just helps you to see things in a lot of different ways.
That's right.
In terms of like the Tetris effect, when you have dreams after doing something like really intensely, because I have so many different hobbies, I've had like a lot of different versions of that, right? Like when I used to play piano a lot, and then you'd go to sleep and you dream about playing piano, or like, you know, when you paint for a really long time and then you go to sleep and you're doing
painting
lines in your head. But the wildest experiences I've ever had with that particular experience is after a day of programming. That breaks your head.
Yeah.
And you start literally writing instructions for like getting up and walking to the bathroom or something like that. Like you start breaking it down into different programming steps.
Amazing.
While you're sleeping.
Yes, right.
And it's not a good sleep. It's like you wake up and you're like, I feel like I just worked for 8 hours. I'd
rather be working out a color scheme and
Yeah.
than a program code.
I think maybe part of the reason why I switch between so many different things is because of that, the intensity. Because if I did that for 6 months straight, I think I would break down. You do something really intensely for a little bit, and then you're like, okay, we're switching gears, and we'll
Time
do
for the
something
next
else.
thing. Let's do the next thing.
Gives me a question to ask my programmer son about his dreams.
Oh, you
Oh,
definitely
yeah.
should. You'll get an interesting
But he
answer.
does a lot of, he does running and mountain climbing and jewelry making, and I think all of
cool.
those things balance it out. But
Yeah.
I'd like to know about that part. Yeah.
What is the most fulfilling or satisfying aspect of making art or being an artist?
I don't even know how to answer that question. It's just a kind of like I have to do it, so I get to do it. Wonderful. It's been so clear to me this year with the pandemic, and like we had said, I had moved in just before all that happened, and I was like, well, how wonderful I'm here. And I'm an introvert, so I can hibernate just fine. I'm also sort of ADD-ish, so my day kind of starts, I get up pretty regularly, but it's sort of a slow start, and I just kind of do any little odds and ends that need attending to, a little bit of doom scrolling, a little doodling, a little bit of distractibility, and I kind of clear that out, and then I paint. And I paint, I can paint till 11 o'clock at night. I've never turned on my television. It's really here for company, which I haven't had. And I can just do it, all the different aspects of it. And I've got a workroom downstairs so I can, do the framing. Just even the mundane parts of it. What's fulfilling about it? I don't know the answer to that question.
It
But
could be all of it.
it's extremely fulfilling. It's problem solving. And there's always an answer to that. Like, what am I going to do next? And I just have a next, and then I figure what do I need to do that. It's a huge exercise in, can I do this? Can I do that? Can I do this? Can I do that? How do I do that? Each picture raises a question. It raises questions like, I don't know, how do I make that happen? Like talk about chrome, like how you do reflective surfaces. I tried different kinds of materials. I try different kinds of scenes. I try different kinds. I mean, whether I work from photographs or I set something up and I paint from life. It's a raising of questions. It's a solving of problems. It's just engaging on enough levels that it's fully entertaining.
So there's this great book that I read. I forget the name of the author, but the title of the book was called Flow. And it was this really interesting...
I've heard of that book. But...
Yeah, it's a really good book. The flow state, right? The concept of being right at that perfect edge of like being close to the limits of your ability within the grasp of what you can do enough that you stay engaged with it for a long period of time.
Yes, there does seem to always be pushing the edge, like a little challenge involved.
And there needs to be.
Yeah.
You need to be challenged, not so challenged that you can't do it, but not easy enough that it gets boring. There's a perfect sweet spot in there. In as little or as much detail as you like, describe your process for creating a work of art.
Yeah, I don't know what that decision-making process is. It seems like kind of a question has come up on some level, and then that just kind of drives. At the beginning of the pandemic, and I couldn't travel, I went into travel photography and pulled out a lot of pictures of animals, mostly from safari. And it's like, well, I've never done exotic animals, and so my initial love was always portraiture. So, well, I can't do people, I'll do animals. I mean, and then I circled back around like, well, maybe I should try my hand at plain old Chester County animals. And that also involves landscape, which I think I'm less comfortable with because I love getting into the detail. Something about my ADD self loves getting into detail. I like those reflections and different effects of different materials and the different things needed. How do you make it soft? How do you make it hard edged? How do you make it like a piece of cloth versus a piece of metal? You know, what creates the different effects? How do you get different materials? And I like getting into those details. Whereas you're doing a landscape and it's like, I'm not going to get all those branches. It's not going to happen. Right. So how do I now work with the effect of something without the specific details? That's just another set of questions and problems to solve. And one thing just leads to another. You know, it just goes on and on and on. It's endless, right? The things appeal to me. Like, I'll drive and I'll see something. I'm like, oh, I love that. You know, I keep things around my house. I like these things.
I love the idea of the initial spark being a curiosity. You keep referring to it as a question, and I really like that.
That sort of informs my approach to trying a new thing, because I try a lot of things I'm not very good at, but like crochet or knitting or cross stitch or 3D modeling. I'll see a thing and I'll be like, can I make that thing in this medium? How would I recreate that using these materials and these techniques?
And it's also taking it beyond, and that's where the extra spark of artwork, where I want to go and don't always hit that mark. But what is it that's appealing about this to me?
Yes.
And how do it's not just reproducing this thing that I see, but making it spark somehow. I don't know what that is. Like, there's something then that turns it into a really appealing piece of artwork. That's the ultimate question, and I think that's the one that's the hardest to reach.
I think that's where the work begins, is decoding what inside of what I just looked at gave me that feeling, and then trying to distill the piece of artwork to just what gave you those feelings. You can try to just reproduce it as exactly as you can, but a lot of times, depending on how you do that, sometimes something gets lost, and then you get to that finished product and you're like, that feeling isn't there.
It's not singing. It takes artistic license to move to that place.
Right. It's challenging, but like once you start to recognize what gives you that feeling, then you start to recognize like, okay, this is what's going to make other people happy. What art or artists influenced or inspired you, and how did you incorporate them in your own work?
This is actually difficult for me because I think I was not exposed to much artwork growing up. I just always was doing it. Or like you say, other things. I made all my clothes. I made all my paper dolls. I just was always doing it. And there was a little thing in the magazines, draw this figure. And I never sent it in, but I would always try it. Can you do this? But I wasn't really being exposed to artwork and artists until I did this art major thing in college. And there was an art history course, and I started being exposed, and I took more art history. So these were my exposures in the galleries then. And I know at that point I really loved Delacroix. He really appealed to me a lot. The action, the things that I don't do, the action and the color and these huge things, the paintings. And then I was also struck sort of simultaneously with, I'm going to forget his name, Dutch artist with the little tiny, whole interiors in full detail. And when I went to the museum, it's this big.
Oh, wow.
Like you think, now I'm looking at a master, a huge painting. It was actually like this big. I'm all over the map with it. Like
Yeah.
what I love. To be looking at artwork, and whether it's on Instagram, always best in person because of things like color and scale you do not get in
Right.
any other media. You can't get. I went to a Gauguin exhibit and I thought, I never saw those colors ever before in my life. There isn't a single book that can reproduce his colors. They're just sensational. So all of that is energizing to me, being exposed to other artists, period. I think there's a lot of intimidation for people who aren't artists about looking at art. The art history maybe has worked against art appreciation in that it's become mysterious. Well, I don't get it. I don't know. I like it. I don't like it. I don't know. Am I supposed to like it? You know.
I agree with you
Just
there.
look at it.
Yeah.
And you like it or you don't like it. I mean, that's fine. That really isn't any more complicated because they have an energy and you're responding or you're not responding. And that's fine. It's all good. It's all good. And I ultimately believe that. I don't think there's a right or wrong about artwork. I just think it's a human expression. We need to do it. It's all good.
What was the reason that you gravitated towards painting as your preferred medium?
The early painting classes that I took, acrylics were new, and it was suggested we start with acrylics. But at some point, I decided to try oils. And it was like love at first sight. It was just, oh, they're so delicious, I wanted to eat them. The way they feel, magical, absolutely magical. And I remember working on a painting at home in my basement, and I stepped backwards into a box I'd put out as my trash can, and it was like coming out of a trance. And
Oh
I
my
was
gosh.
like, I just love this. So I guess I just love this because I was so lost in it. There's something about the quality of the feel of oil paints that I just love, and there isn't anything much more to it than that.
Once again, we hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as we did. Thanks to Gwenn Knapp for taking the time to talk about art with us, and thanks again to Adrian Martinez for hosting us all at Studio 25 on May 15th and 16th. You can find more of Gwenn's wonderful artwork at gwennknapp.com, and please check the links in the description below for more information about the Chester County Studio Tour.